Where did you go to high school at?
Graduated from West Henderson in 1976 and actually started working at WHKP in 1975. So I've been there 33 years. Played football at West, and the biggest thrill that we'd have on Friday nights is looking up at the press box and seeing WHKP was broadcasting that as the game of the week. So I appreciated it as a player, so I think when I moved into the broadcast booth, I knew how it felt for the players to see, hey, we're on the radio tonight. So that certainly added a little bit of incentive to me to stay in that press box for 27 years.
Yeah, good. And what position did you play?
Played offensive guard and nose tackle at West Henderson High School. Our claim to fame was we beat Hendersonville for the first time in 20 years as a West Henderson team in 1976. And that hadn't happened in 20 years, so that was one of our biggest wins that year.
Good. And, I was going to ask you an obvious question, but what's your favorite sport?
Well, my favorite sport right now is golf.
Okay.
Because that's the only one I'm still playing. But in high school, I would have to say baseball. I had an offer to play baseball at Western, but I was already working at the radio station, and so I got a first phone engineer's license and then went full-time in 1977, and that's when I went into the broadcast booth, actually, was with Mike Edney and Charlie Renfro in 1977, and then, of course, it was a pilgrimage of different people throughout the years, and it was a lot of fun.
Good. And how long did you cover football?
I broadcast football for 27 years. I had to figure that up today because I had never really started to look back and think about it. I actually stopped broadcasting my son's junior year at West, which was 3 years ago. Will played tackle, offensive and defensive tackle at West, and so I wasn't going to be doing East and North Henderson when Will's playing somewhere else. So for 2 years I did that, and then after that, our ministry, which is Fire in the Mountains, has gotten so big that we do so many revivals now. I'm usually out of town on Friday, and that certainly keeps me from being in the press box.
Oh, good. And well, you've seen your share of incredible athletes through the years
I have.
here, and if possible, could you list like your top 3 football players?
Well, I started thinking today about a question like that and wondering if it would be posed, and the first person that came to my mind was a little bitty player at West named Kyle Kirkendall. And Kyle Kirkendall single-handedly just beat people. They couldn't tackle him. He was just short and stocky and powerful. And I remember them playing Tuscola back when Tuscola was a football power at Tuscola, and they could not tackle Kyle. He just had such a big heart. And then I think about Vincent Necklace. And I think of all the players that I've seen over the years, he probably had the most talent of any. I also think it's the greatest travesty I've ever seen that he didn't play in the Shrine Bowl, because that's just ridiculous. And Sam Gash, you got to talk about Sam. And I actually saw Eric this past weekend, and Eric's back in town now. And, of course, they were phenomenal athletes. And I think of Cam Lowing at West Henderson, a big bruising fullback back when every year West didn't have a tailback, they had a fullback. And they had really good teams. And then East Henderson had a team that only lost 2 games one year. And one of the big parts of that was the quarterback, Roger Case. Roger was a great athlete. He later played softball with us. But it was Roger's punting that kept him in games. He was probably one of the better punters that's ever punted here in Henderson County. So those are some of the guys, and obviously when you start mentioning a few names, you can't remember everybody. I have also been thinking today about the most fun that we've had in the press box, and that has to be doing a Cherokee game. Because one year we had Cucumber handing off to Al and throwing to Wolf, and Squirrel was making all the tackles on defense, and that just made for a fun night in Edneyville.
And did you cover the basketball games too?
We did basketball for years. I'm not sure how many. We did 2 state championships, and we actually did the East Henderson state championships. And then that same night, the night before, I did the state championship game for Nashville Station, and Reynolds won the state championship. And that was a real highlight because we were broadcasting from Woody's booth at the Dean E. Smith Center in Chapel Hill, and Roy and Darla and I were thrilled to be able to go down, and even more excited that they won. And then The only time I ever saw a volleyball game, I broadcast 3 state championship volleyball tournaments, and that was really weird. If I hadn't had Sue Moon with me, we'd have really been in a mess because I didn't even know what volleyball was all about. And we broadcast baseball games over the years as well. In fact, this past year I did a baseball game out at Blue Ridge Community College.
Okay.
So